Hello YouTube. First order of business today, hats. Everybody knows AMD makes the highest quality hats. Get one if you can. They're amazing. Great woolly. Actually, excuse the hat for today. Left the window open. It's a little bit cold in here. That and I need a haircut pretty badly, so thought it'd be alright. But aside from that, today I'd like to go over our review rating system. And what I mean by this is, in our reviews, we're going to want to assign an estimated rough point value system to each of the products and software or hardware that we go over. I'd mentioned this in the last video, and I got a little bit of feedback on it, and I've been developing a very simple, objective, well, it's more subjective rating system that I think will work out no matter which product we're looking at. You have to understand you're going to take this with a grain of salt whenever we give a rating out. So let's see what you guys think. Now, there are 5 main categories for our review rating system. Then there's a 6th extra credit or bonus category, and we'll get into that later. Each of these categories will be out of a certain number of points, and any product that meets the bare minimums or bare expectations for a product in that certain niche of the market for that respective category will get the maximum amount of points minus 5. So if performance, for example, is worth 35 points, if you have a product that performs up to expectations but not necessarily beyond, that product will get a bare minimum of 30 points. This works out to be overall 75 points for a basic or good quality component that meets the bare expectations of a product of that type. And I'll get a little bit more into that later. Let's go over the categories then. We have performance, which is worth 35 points, reliability, which is worth 25 points, noise, heat, and noise, and I'll go over what I mean by this later, which is worth 15 points, features, which is worth 15 points, aesthetics, which are worth 10, and extra credit, which is worth 5. If we go to performance, this is worth the most because we think it's the most important. If the product isn't able to perform up to your standards or not at all, then there's no point in purchasing it to begin with. If it can't do what it's supposed to, it's kind of pointless in that aspect. So we take that as the most important. Now, what does it encompass? We don't have a 100% solidified system with this, but for the most part, take cases, for example, this will encompass the capabilities of cooling. Does it properly cool components that will be put into that type of case? Small form factor versus mid-tower versus full tower, etc. When it comes to CPUs and GPUs, we're looking at the overall speed of the product, how well does it benchmark and perform in real-world applications. These are the main things to consider for performance. And again, as we said, if it can't do these basic things, such as a case being able to hold an ATX motherboard when it specifies it holds an ATX motherboard, then there's no point in even having the product to begin with for that purpose. The next is reliability. How reliable is the product? If the product's only going to last a week, it's really not going to be worth buying in most cases. Or if it's potentially going to damage other components in your system or just cause headaches. Also in this reliability category, we'll take into account the support of the manufacturer that it's in or made by, and the warranty that it comes with. Now, the most important product I think for reliability would be power supplies. You'll see this is the one will be the harshest with when grading. The next is noise, heat, and noise. Now, the first noise being the audible noise that the component makes. There are some components that won't make any noise or nothing that you'll notice, in which case it won't be a big issue and they'll get the full credit for that portion. Then there's the heat. This is not the heat dissipation rate, but rather the heat that the component makes. For example, if you have a fan in your system, that fan creates a tiny amount of heat. That's negligible. You're not going to notice it. that fan also dissipates a certain amount of heat by moving the air, and that's more performance relative. So what we're looking at here is the GPU core. How much heat does that put out? Not how well does the heatsink on top of it dissipate the heat that is there. So that's something to consider. And the last noise is relative to EMI, or electromagnetic interference, also known as radiation, which I think is kind of funny. And that we're not going to really get into depth with now, or in our early reviews, because we don't have the equipment to test this. We may take a look at ratings, and we may mention things here or there, but for the most part, that's kind of negligible at this point, and you won't really see an effect on your system, but we're keeping it there for future use in these review systems. The next step is features. Now, what we mean by features are things above and beyond the general expectations of the market for that particular product type. For example, if you're looking at a mid-tower case, you're going to look at something like a toolless design, or the integration of eSATA on the front port, or a SATA hard drive hot swappable adapter in the hard drive bays. Things of that nature, that's going to earn it extra points above and beyond a standard case. And the same thing goes with sound cards or any other device. A sound card like the Creative X-Fi supports EAX. Now, the next category is aesthetics. Don't underestimate the effect of aesthetics. This is only worth 10 points, so it's not going to change a lot about the product's overall rating. But there are a lot of products out there that are centered around aesthetics, and people really do purchase things because they look nice. So it's something to highly consider, and it's worth giving a product a 93 instead of a 91, or a 95 even instead of a 90, or something along those lines, because it's in brushed aluminum and it's, you know, anodized black or something of that nature, so it does look flashy. A lot of people consider these things, especially with cases, or even things like graphics cards and 5 1/4 inch fan controllers and things of that like. Things you're going to see, especially maybe a heatsink if you can see it through an open window, etc. So that will be taken into account. Then our last category is the extra credit, or the bonus category, which is only worth 5 points. Now, the bonus category, that really takes into account going above and beyond what's expected in the market. We normally consider this to be kind of features, but they're not just any additional innovative feature. The best way I can explain this is take a power supply, for instance. Let's say there was a need for 3,000 watt power supplies in the market. Now, really, there isn't. Not at least in the mainstream. But no other power supply in the market offers a 3,000 watt rating. Maybe the closest thing is a 2,000 watt power supply. Okay, so we have a power supply that otherwise would get maybe an 80, 85. It's an okay power supply, but it offers a 3,000 watt output rating, which is something that's necessary for certain individuals maybe in the market. So it's something exceptional that isn't normally offered elsewhere and is required from certain people, in which case we'll give it the bonus points relative to its importance. In that case, it might be getting a 5, in which case it would move up from being an 85 to a 90, which in our terms is going from a good product to a great product. So it is something worth keeping in mind. Now, take everything here with a grain of salt, and that means this isn't a very exacting rating system, and the reason for this is because we don't have the time to go through every type of product and the market and the expectations for that product type, because the market fluctuates too often and there are a lot of products, and we'd have to write out extensive qualifications and standards in order to get an exacting rating system. This is an estimate. Also, we're pretty harsh in what we'll be rating, so like I said earlier, the standard rating starts out at about a 75, unless it's worse than that. So acceptable products are going to be around a 75.